So a semi-long form version of a workflow that I've built. Semi-long form meaning I don't want to get into every single littlest detail, but I hope what I can show is how to build a workflow for a use case like this. Imagine you only have company names of companies attending a conference. You're at this conference. Your company sells a solution that is relevant for companies that have a free plan. And what you want is to pick up the phone and call a growth person at qualified companies, meaning at companies that are attending the conference and which have a free plan. So there's a few things in there. Getting from company name to company domain, company LinkedIn URL, that's one step. The next, which is actually the biggest and most important and most complicated step, is disqualifying which companies don't have a free plan, which companies do have a free plan. Sounds so simple, but it actually is not quite as simple. And then the next thing is to find people with certain roles. In this case, I was looking for people who have growth in their title at the qualified companies and choose the highest ranking growth person and then finding the email of that person. It is a proof of concept. When implemented with a client, there are more nuances to it. So the qualification, disqualification would probably look different. And also, who do you want to reach out to would look different. That should be really the best person to connect at a conference like this. I, for simplicity's sake, said I only want to talk to the best person. Of course, realistically, you would probably see that you find numbers for 2, 3, 4 relevant people who may be at that conference. My thinking here is what makes it a realistic use case. Like, what's a better trigger than calling, hey, I'm at this conference, I work at such and such, I saw your company's here, you're a growth person, are you at that conference, do you want to connect? Something like that. I'm not a cold caller, so there will be much better cold calling scripts than what I just said. But this is the trigger where I'm building this workflow for, or the outcome I'm building this workflow for. So how does it look like? This will be the table where I'm pushing the results in. This is the input companies. Let's just use these 15 as examples. And what the workflow will touch on, basically what I said: find company domain, LinkedIn URL, find the pricing page, determine if they have a free plan, yes or no, find contacts at the qualified companies, find the best contact, and then find their phone number. This is going to be it. This is how the workflow looks like. Input, company name. Clay has a free integration from Clearbit, meaning no cost, and you can find company domains based on a name. Works pretty well. Doesn't work for every individual company, for each individual company. So what I'm using here is a conditional formula to run a Google search for those where Clearbit didn't find the domain. And this leads to, I would call it the end result of the domain search, which is normalized company domains in one column. There is already a few things happening to get to this, which is I'm using my own search API, Serper, which is super cheap. I think 50,000 searches for $50. This is different when you use Clay's credits for the Google search, because that can be relatively expensive. I think on the lowest plan that could be about 7 cents. That could be about 7 cents, which is just too expensive for a Google search. But with your own API, that becomes so little that you can just throw it into a workflow and use the Google search results to make things easier, to make things more accurate, because you don't ask AI, hey, go to the web and find this. This can be all over the place. This allows you to be really clear which page you want to find with a search, and that can then be used for further work in the workflow. Much better way to do it than just putting kind of a search as part of a prompt later in the workflow. I hope that makes sense. Ask me if not. So the way you get to this result is first setting up the search term, in this case company name and website. This is how it looks. I basically created a text field, and let's just say this here, and I'm only going to show it in this instance how you do that, but like create a text field and then / reference the company name field and say website. That's it. That will populate that column always with what I said, was the company name and the added term website. And this is then, this looks very complicated. I'm going to get into API integrations in a later video, but basically this search term is then plugged into this custom API, and this will search for the company website, and the output is then put together with a formula, because I kind of ask it, look at this result, and if that is empty, look at another result. Here's what I mean by that. You can do that with a merge column actually, and I'm going to show why I didn't use that, but insert right, merge column, first try, and I would always start with the truest data. In this case, that will be SERPA find domain. And here's like one thing you always have to be aware of in Clay. More data is always nested in properties. So here you see only this 200, which means the request was successful. But what I want to get to is like a certain property nested in this column. And let me show first how that looks. When I click on the 200 here on the top right, I have like certain things that came back. In this case, it's a Google search. So these properties are all results of that Google search. And under organic, there is the 0 means this is the first organic result. And here we find the company homepage, because that really should be the first organic result. There are ways to get to this in a better way, or if it's not the first result, you can work around that. But in this case, it's always going to be the first result. So walking back, what I've shown, it's nested in the cell. And when you want to use something like, for example, this merge column, you have to point it to that nested result, which is find domain, organic, and then link. I clicked to that pretty quickly, but it's really only drilling down until I get to this field that I want to merge. Then I can say, okay, if basically it's a conditional formula. If this is empty, then get the domain from here, find company name, domain, boom, and then save settings, and that should actually put all of this together. The reason I did this with a formula is because I also added that it should get rid of all the www and all of the HTTP stuff, but let's keep it like this. This is the outcome from finding the domain. 8 minutes about finding a domain, but I said it's going to be a long form video. So the next part is actually finding the LinkedIn URL, which is the same concept, just with one more added twist, which is a very prescriptive, oops, I don't want to rename, which is a very prescriptive Google search, which looks at site linkedin.com/company/company name, because that will only search on LinkedIn in the company category, and then it finds the company URL, again with my search API, which makes it very cheap. So that means up until this point, basically haven't paid anything. That's fractions of pennies that we have here. I think this is where it gets more interesting, because how do you actually get to the point to say a company has a free plan, yes or no? For a human, that's really easy to say. For a machine, it's not as straightforward, and there's actually one example in here where the response is wrong. which I believe is, okay, now I don't find it, but there was one where, Godspot, yes, I don't know which one it is, where there was one free something and it could be interpreted as a free plan. So it's much trickier, and especially when you look at technically, when you run a AI and say, hey, go to this website and tell me if this company has a free plan, it's too messy, it's too complex. And when you think about it, like a company may have a free trial, or they may have free trial after talking to a sales team or something like that. I'm not bringing the best worst examples to the table here, but after a lot of experimentation, I can say that just saying, hey, tell me if this company, in a nutshell, if this company has a free plan, yes or no, that doesn't work. So where do you get the truest data of that? And that is the pricing page. And the way to find the pricing page is, of course, looking for the company name or company domain, to be even more specific, and search for pricing, and that will lead to a really good result here. So this is to a very high degree the best page. I would say probably this is not the best, because they probably don't have a regular pricing page. Yeah, they don't have a pricing page, so this is as close as it gets, and it's good enough for our use case. So anyways, here we have the pricing page, and this is such an important concept to think about. Where is the truest data? And here come what I would say is the end result of about 2 hours of experimentation, where, let me actually quickly show that, default view motion build, I think that should be it, where you can see here, this is a lot of trial and error with like prompts with GPT 3.5, GPT 4.0, and like here I used Sonnet, I think, yes. So 3.5, I used a Haiku, which is the cheapest Anthropic model. That didn't lead to great results, and basically all of these GPT 3.5 results are wrong. And you can find that by, of course, knowing if a company has a free plan. So ClickUp definitely has a free plan. I think it kind of screams, yes, we have a free plan, and yet 3.5 says no. And it says, after examining both the pricing page and the homepage, there's no information available. When you drill down into steps taken, which is an amazing feature in Clay, it actually doesn't find relevant data, because the reason for that is, and when I hit run again, it may find data, because it's a scraper, and a scraper doesn't work all the time. In this case, GPT couldn't access the data on the pricing page, so it says no. And you can do that much better with a higher end model, because they follow instructions better. And what I experimented with was GPT 4.0 and also Anthropic Sonnet, which is the mid-tier model. And here is how I wrote this prompt. This is actually what I'm using in the end. This is the prompt. I don't want to make this about prompting, so I'm only glancing over it, but like the standard thing, act as an expert in SaaS, visit the company website and examine the homepage, Here's the company pricing page. Give the page 3,000 milliseconds to load, answer the question if the company has a pricing plan that is free. And here's a trick. First, I pointed really to the right page, and second, what you see here, because otherwise LLMs get thrown off, I put in all the terms that can possibly be used for a free plan. So this is free, basic, starter, essential, light, trial, introductory, entry, personal, whatever. And I actually asked ChatGPT to come up with the 20 most frequent terms for free plans. And that I put into a regular text field, which is always the same, but it allows to edit it here, and then it will be edited in the prompt too, where you can drop in kind of qualification criteria for the LLM to make a decision. And in this case, the qualification criteria is that it should be named one of these terms. Say yes or no. Model is Sonnet, which is much more expensive than the cheapest model, but still very affordable, especially for a high impact outcome like this. And what you see here, GPT-4o, kind of leads to, let's actually run these, kind of leads to the same responses. I think there's only one difference somewhere. No, they're actually all the same, which is to say that is a very good indicator when two models come to the same conclusion. That doesn't make it a given thing, but it's a good indicator that the result may in fact be accurate. But the point is, when you look here, the total cost to provider is 2.5 cents. And when you look at the same at Haiku, okay, so in this case it's 2.5 too, but in most cases, like here and here, the Haiku is half the price. So this is almost 5 cents, which is pretty expensive. And this is 2.5 cents, which is still expensive relatively speaking, but again, for a high impact outcome, this is something I believe is a cost that is bearable. Maybe even the other one would be. So skipping back to how that looks in a clean view, after finding the pricing page, oh sorry, that's not the view, I want to show the default view. After finding the pricing page, again with that really cheap search method, I point a model to that pricing page and I ask it if they have a free plan, yes or no, and this is the response. The next thing, and here's where things get, I believe, even cooler, is that I asked ChatGPT what types of roles what are the most frequently used roles and titles that contain growth, or for growth people at companies or something like that. This is the list ChatGPT came up with, and honestly, I wouldn't say this is the best list under the sun, but since it's a proof of concept and I did not use expert input for that and I didn't do like deep research on that, I'm just gonna run with it. I think this could be a point where more research and more thoughtfulness can lead to a better result, but I think for the demonstration purposes this is good enough. Why did I come up with those roles? Because I used the find contacts at companies integration, which basically looks at the company LinkedIn URL and then finds contacts working at that company. Of course, you want to qualify which contacts to look for. When a company has 1,000 employees, you don't want to find 1,000 employees. In this case, I only looked for job title keywords containing growth. I did do no other criteria here. And important, I used a conditional formula which says find only people at companies if the result of free plan is yes. This is a really important thing because the qualification happens at the step where we say free plan, yes or no. If they don't have a free plan and my product needs to sell to companies that do have a free plan, there's no point in finding a phone number and doing expensive enrichment runs, right? You don't want to waste that person's time, your time, the credits, whatever. It's super important to have the step, and it's actually this little thing of this conditional formula not running if the company doesn't have a free plan. Okay, cool. Then it finds at some companies just one person. At some companies it finds multiple people. And here's where things get pretty cool. When you look at, for example, these 16 people, and actually only the first 10 are shown, but my point is it's all in here. So these are the 10 people. Let's open the properties and then we have the company name. We have the LinkedIn URL, the name of the person, and importantly, we have the title. And titles are so weird, like people use them all across the board, or not all across the board, but like titles are just not standardized, right? There are so many little variations of it. And this is where it's so much better to use an LLM than a formula, because it can ingest all of those titles and make quote unquote a call, which is the best title. And here's what I did for that. The prompt looks like this. You're a helpful data analyst, Your task is find the highest ranking person based on their title. And I'm very prescriptive how the output should look like, which worked really well. But I also provided the whole set of people from that find contact search, and which is really cool, I just pointed to all those results. And I also provided the role titles, which are actually ranked. From Chief Growth Officer, VP Growth, Head of Growth, Director, and so on and so on. I actually think it's the other way around, but whatever. And then again, repeating the output, because LLMs are really weird with outputting stuff in the way they want. And this is basically it. So it's a prompt that looks at all of the roles that have been found, all this structured data in this case, and looks at how I rank those titles, and then it outputs, because I said only output the highest ranking person, or the person with the highest ranking title, and then we get one result. In this case, it's Federico whatever, I'm not going to try, Andrea Yao. And what I like about Clay is how you can use formulas to map things out more neatly. So what you see here is that it's all in one field. We don't want that. But I asked to do the output separated by semicolon. And that means I can write a formula, and this is how it looks like. Get the response, which is like the whole name, title, and LinkedIn URL. Get that field, extract the string before the first semicolon. That's just the name. Beautiful, we got the name individually mapped out. I hope that makes sense. Then I duplicated that and said, get the response and extract the string between the first and the second semicolon. And it does just that. And I did the same for the LinkedIn URL, which is the LinkedIn URL, the name and the role of the best contact. Let's bring it back to the beginning, of a company attending that conference and who has a self-serve motion. I think that is absolutely crazy that these kinds of things can be done at scale. What I find crazy about it is it's super simple to have a person, hey, these are the companies at the conference, check who is the best person, or actually check if they have a free plan, and then find the best person to talk to. But it takes a lot of time. And like having an option to do especially that qualification step at scale is just mind-blowing to me. That is available for somebody who can hire me or do it themselves, versus having a highly qualified data science, whatever team, engineering team, work on a case like this, because that's kind of what you needed to do before. To me, that's still pretty magical. And then in the end, this is really simple in Clay to find phone numbers. That's really just using an enrichment of like find phone numbers. So that would be, I think you have to search for mobile. Yeah, here, mobile phone number, and then you set up the waterfall and you point it to which phone number do you want. That should be the person's LinkedIn profile. And yeah, then you hit run, and you spend a lot of credits to get phone numbers. Phone numbers are, I think, the most expensive thing you can run. This is why I actually just came up with phone numbers, but it doesn't matter. The magic is what happens before finding the phone number is just a mechanical click. And actually, I think I didn't run it, at least not again. And then I set up my Google Sheets integration, which actually I'm just gonna go over quickly, but it's super mechanical. authorize or authorize your Google Sheet, your Google account with Clay. Then create a table. And by the way, tip, don't use any fancy characters in the column titles that may throw the integration off. Then you drop in the Google spreadsheet URL, you say which field ID, and then you have to plug in the right data point for the right column so it can populate the right way. It's really do it once or twice and then it becomes second nature. Let me quickly run that. Run column, force run, and that should push all of this back into the Google Sheet or into HubSpot or Salesforce CRM. That's kind of the same thing, just adding the integration, matching the right mapping, the right Clay field to the right field in Google Sheets or in the CRM, and that's frankly it. And this would really be the result. So the input, company names, maybe somebody snapped a picture of an attendee list or it was on some website or something, really working from the assumption you have limited data, only the company name, and you want to find the phone number of a, maybe not the best, but a really good person to talk to, and the output would be those phone numbers. I hope that was a little bit inspiration of how Clay can be used for collecting data, finding the right data points, and then making a few good judgment calls and making a few good decisions with the right LLM on the right source. You can get to really high quality results on things like that. And here, there's so much creativity, right? This was just, does a company have a free plan, yes or no? But there are, I would argue and say, anything that can be found out in the public domain can be automated and productionized at scale in Clay. Reach out if there are any questions, and good luck building.